TIFU by pretending to be mute on an airplane, by user TFS10. This happened a while ago but I still cringe when I think about it. I hopped on a short flight from Dallas to San Antonio to visit my brother. I ended up on an aisle seat towards the very back of a packed plane. As I sat, the guy seated next to me was busy and I decided not to bug him with the quick hello or the classic business or pleasure question that people tend to ask. About 15 minutes into the flight I began to eat one of those very dry Biscoff crackers. Without water on hand, I realized I overcommitted my salivary gland for some real work. Of course, at this exact moment, my seatmate begins his opening introduction. I nod to him and smile, but I was not about to open my mouth to pepper him with Biscoff cracker dust. Unaware of my dilemma, he asks me a question. I motion to my throat with my hand to suggest I was finishing a bite. His eyes go large and he quickly apologizes and turns red in the face with embarrassment. I was surprised by his reaction and thought his response was a little over the top. A few seconds later I realized that he thought I was motioning that I could not speak. No problem, I would clarify everything as soon as I could swallow my cracker. Unfortunately, this cracker must have been made from some properties that send all moisture to another dimension. As I waited, the stewardess came to save the day with a drink cart. She asked me what I wanted to drink. I just pointed at a Sprite can. As I did this, my seatmate clarified my choice by verbally telling the stewardess my selection. I could tell that he felt a sense of accomplishment that he was able to help me communicate given my perceived disability. Maybe it made him feel better after having asked me a question that I was unable to answer. As the flight continued, I realized that I accidentally committed myself to becoming mute. I was at the point of no return, so I figured I would just go with it. I didn't want to make him feel stupid. He began to tell me a couple things about his family. He mentioned a relative with a similar impairment following a stroke. He also showed me a picture of his dog on his phone. He knew I could not respond, so he never asked me any questions. I just nodded and smiled at anything he said to be polite, not uttering a sound. Eventually our plane lands. By this time I forgot about my act. I sat patiently as people began to deplane. Being at the very back of the plane, I knew I had to wait, so I remained seated. My phone vibrates. I see that it is my brother calling me. I accept the call and enthusiastically say, "What's up? I just landed. Give me about 10 minutes and I will meet you out front." My memory sends me a notice a little too late to remind me that I am supposed to be playing the role of mute person on this plane. I slowly look over to my seatmate to see if he really even noticed. His head was directly aimed at me. He had the most disgusted look on his face, like I punched a baby bunny. I began to turn red. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't think of anything to say to make the moment less awkward. A part of my brain that does not get outside much convinced me to get out of the plane quickly. I turned that thought into action and I quickly got out of my chair and grabbed my backpack. I looked back at the guy and I can confirm that he was more committed to maintaining his disgusted expression than I was at being mute. I quickly looked at the person in front of me standing in the aisle. I could go nowhere. I remained standing for about another eternity until the line started to ease up. I finally made my escape, but this moment still haunts me. TLDR, after a miscommunication, I pretended to be mute on a plane so I would not embarrass my seatmate. My brother broke my cover when I took his phone call upon landing. My seatmate communicated with his face how disgusted he was with my act. TIFU by trying to add novelty lobster oven mitts to my wedding registry. Now I'm rethinking things, by user Cringecoop. TIFU by trying to add novelty lobster oven mitts to my wedding registry. Now I'm rethinking things. Oh Lord. I am 24, met my fiancé F, 26, in college, about 6 years ago. We were instant sweethearts who bonded over both feeling out of place at the fancy California state school we ended up at. Things have been going decently well for years. I love her very, very much. My fiancé has always had some unique quirks, but she has a diagnosed anxiety disorder and is from rural Idaho, so I maybe give her the benefit of the doubt a little bit too often. Something I have been silently aware of is the fact that my fiancé has always been a little weird around black people. I am white, and so is she, but I was adopted into a black family when I was little, so my whole extended family is black. My best friend Tim is also black. We grew up in the same city and were roommates the first 2 years of college. My fiancé has never liked Tim, despite him being my childhood best friend and someone who is clearly important to me. She's always said that Tim is too loud or rude to her, or that she doesn't like the way he smells. She's always tried to get me to hang out with other, white, friends over Tim. She even suggested I have her best friend's boyfriend as my best man over Tim. At the time all of these things registered as weird of course, but as I said she's a very naturally quirky woman who does strange things sometimes. I told her that I still planned on having Tim as my best man, and that was that. Flash forward to today, and wedding planning has been going great. My 3 sisters along with my fiancé's best friend are going to be bridesmaids, and my wife is supposed to pick out and order bridesmaid dresses by the end of next week. We've been having a ton of fun building our wedding registry. We live in a nice house but are working on remodeling the kitchen, so most of our registry is kitchen stuff. Earlier today, I saw an ad for some hilarious but tasteful lobster oven mitts, and I grabbed my fiancé's laptop to add them to our wedding registry. To my absolute horror, when I opened her computer, the browser was open to a search along the lines of colors that make black women look ugly. I looked through her search history. What colors wash out dark skin? Worst bridesmaids dresses for dark-skinned women. Literally dozens of searches across these lines. I closed her laptop and put it back, but I feel like I have to bring it up after she gets home this afternoon. I know it's her big day but this is seriously raising some red flags. I feel like I'm going to throw up but maybe I'm reading too far into things? TLDR, TIFU by trying to add something to my wedding registry, and was met with my fiancé's racially charged search history. Edit. It's been a hectic few hours but there's a few updates. I called my oldest sister who I'm closest with to try and get her read on this shit after reading the comments. I hadn't even considered that maybe she was trying to be helpful in some sort of backwards way by finding a flattering color or something, but really some of the wording of these searches feels really racially charged so I doubt it's that. My sisters have always had much better interactions with my fiancé than Tim. Honestly I think that's why it took me so long for all of the racial weirdness to sit in. My sister was kind of shocked, but mainly laughing. She's never had a explicitly bad interaction with my fiancé and never got the racist vibe, her words, from her, but has always thought she was super weird, like maybe the Zodiac killer. But here's the thing. When I was talking to my sister, she started cracking up and told me that my fiancé had sent her pictures of the bridesmaids' dresses she was thinking of last night when she was searching all of this shit. The nastiest, most washed out, beige yellow dress I have ever seen. I think my sisters are all beautiful women and they would probably look just fine in these dresses, but the fact that my fiancé had chosen them out of some weird racially charged evilness makes this all feel really sour. I told my fiancé I'm going to Tim's tonight for a beer, which I am. I want his perspective because I feel like she's the most explicit when talking to him, and maybe there's some things I don't know about. I feel like I've been a shitty best friend if all this time I've been enabling her racist behavior and excusing it as her just being a weird person. Nothing is off officially yet, but I do feel like this has really opened my eyes and made me aware of some traits in my fiancé that I feel like I was just too stupid to see. Edit 2, talk to Tim. Tim has really changed my mind about a lot of this. He ran to the corner store to buy me a pack of my favorite smokes and really helped me calm down. I was flipping my shit when I went over there. He's like the brother I never had. He agrees that there's been a few times where she's made some unsavory comments, but he denies there ever being a time that has made him really uncomfortable outside of some off-color jokes. He's known my fiancé as long as I have, so he kind of gets the cards on the table. She can really work herself up and get paranoid, and maybe she was having an irrational moment when picking out the dresses. He said he had no idea that my fiancé even had a problem with him, which honestly kind of broke my heart. Tim's a great guy. I am really hoping we can work this out. I'm going to have a real conversation with her when she gets home this evening. I'm going to try to come at this completely honestly and let her explain herself before I jump to conclusions and assume my girl is in the clan or something. Edit 3. Everything's off. It ended with us getting in a screaming match and her telling me to fuck off if I'd rather suck that N-word's dick than be with her. I feel like I'm dreaming. Edit 4. It's been a weird big day. A lot of people have been asking for updates so here it goes. I ended up in a pretty bad spot after everything happened. I've spent the last 6 years not really being a person, she really relied on me to be her constant mental stability. Once it was officially called off I just felt really scared. It felt like I had hit my head and didn't know who I was. I was convinced that the solution to feeling like this was to smoke some motherfucking salvia smiling face with sunglasses, but Tim talked me down and I ended up smoking some bud and taking a lil shrooms. We went and saw Trolls at the movie theater to keep me from getting too in my head. I wouldn't recommend coping with substances the way I do, but the absurdity of the last 24 hours required a factory reset. I'm doing much better now. I don't know what's going to happen going forward, there aren't many updates there. The house is in her name. My dog's paperwork is in her name and that stings the most. She handled a lot of the financial stuff and honestly it's going to be a nightmare to get everything settled. I'm having a lot of trouble posting updates without Reddit nuking them as spam because I'm usually a Reddit lurker lol. So if anyone has any advice there I'd appreciate it. I don't know how many communities this post has circulated to, so if there's a common thread of questions I can try to answer them. TIFU by accidentally waterboarding myself in the shower, by user groupie1. Okay, so this actually happened a couple of months ago but today I realized what happened. I was in the shower and sometimes use a washcloth to help exfoliate myself. So I was doing my normal wash routine and started washing my body, scrubbing with the cloth and some soap. I then moved to washing my face. Started lightly rubbing my face with the rag and then I had the brilliant idea of placing it fully over my face for a relaxing warm sensation. This washcloth is like 12 x 12 inches and fully covers my face. I put some warm water on the cloth and then draped it over my face and thought this feels good. I wonder what it would feel like if I took the shower head and sprayed hot water on my face while the rag was draped over my face. This is when I get the most uncomfortable feeling and suddenly can't breathe and yank the rag off in a panic. My heart rate shot up and I was thinking to myself, what the hell just happened? Did I have a panic attack? It wasn't until today I was watching Zero Dark 30 and the scene where they start waterboarding the dude during the interrogation is when it clicked that I had waterboarded myself in the shower. Only for like 5 seconds but still was the most uncomfortable feeling ever. TLDR, I accidentally waterboarded myself in the shower by placing a 12 x 12 inch exfoliating rag over my face in the shower and then sprayed the shower head full blast on my face. TIFU by spreading misinformation to millions of people, by user_Sharkyevno. I made a Quora when I was in high school back in like 2017. Basically all I would do was answer questions about mostly bugs with incorrect information cause I was a bored high schooler. I pretended to be a biologist to get more credibility. I just opened it for the first time in years and it has millions of views on my answers. I am the top answer for a ton of questions with some of my answers having hundreds of thousands of views. Like I answered a question about wasps with blatantly incorrect information and it is the most liked answer with 780,000 views. Hundreds of thousands of people have incorrect information on wasps because of me. Some of my answers were just obvious jokes, but some of them I made seem really reliable and looked up actually biological information about bugs to give plausible reasons as to why my incorrect information was accurate. I have spread more information on bugs than most scientists will in their lifetime and all of it is lies. What have I done? TLDR, when in high school I made up lies online about bugs while pretending to be a biologist. I just opened my Quora account for the first time in years to realize my lies have millions of views and are the top answers for many questions. TIFU by treating my friend like her suitcase, by user Rolfer. Technically it was yesterday that I fucked up, but there's no subreddit for that, so here we are. Yesterday after work something exciting happened. A friend of mine from way back who moved to the West Coast flew back east for Christmas. And I was the lucky one who got to go pick her up from the airport. And by lucky I mean nobody else wanted to do it and I didn't mind, so I was on airport duty. So I tracked the flight, waited in the cell phone lot, and then when she was ready to be picked up I went around to arrivals for extraction. Her plane was delayed so I had entirely too much time to think about funny things I could do on arrival. At most airports these days, or at least at the airport I frequent, there's usually a plethora of cops around. This was a factor I had not considered when I got a case of the clevers. So I find my friend, and she has her arms open for a big hug. Rather than hug her, I stooped down a bit and threw her over my shoulder in a fireman's carry and then grabbed and started talking to the monstrosity she calls a suitcase instead of her, asking the suitcase how the flight was, how her boyfriend back west is and stuff like that. We make it back to my car, her shrieking and laughing the whole time, pounding on my back and screaming "Put me down you asshole!" Which I ignored. I placed the suitcase by the door and then roll my eyes. Dude, seriously? You need me to open the door, dot. So I open the passenger door and heave the suitcase in the passenger seat and then circle round the back with my shrieking and wiggling friend and pop the trunk open. My friend, realizing what I'm doing shouts, "If you put me in that trunk you are fucking dead," and immediately after that there's that really loud and unnerving squealing sound a police car's loudspeaker makes when it turns on before I hear a very loud "Put the woman on the ground and step away," with those instructions being repeated by very serious sounding voices behind me and the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly. We both freeze and I put her very gently on the ground and take 2 steps back, keeping my hands very far away from my body. As soon as there was separation between us I was told to get on the ground and place my hands on my head, which I did very calmly and slowly. Followed by instructions to not move. I had my fingers crossed in my head that my friend wasn't vindictive enough to feed into it, and thankfully enough she had mercy this time. No, he wasn't kidnapping me, he's just an overgrown child who doesn't think things through. Yes, we arranged for him to pick me up and drive me home from the airport. He's just a dumbass. No, I am not under duress, I promise, he's just an idiot. I would like to go home now, can we please leave? Yes, this is my parents' address, this is my cell phone number, feel free to follow up in an hour. I'll be there. After a few minutes of conversation I'm allowed to stand up and given a bit of a lecture about how seriously kidnapping is taken at airports, and such matters aren't considered funny. Which I soberly agreed with, swearing up and down that I hadn't even considered the kidnapping perspective and thought it would just be funny. Once the police withdrew I put the suitcase in the trunk and let my friend get in and we drove off. Which led to a second lecture about how much of an idiot I can be, which I agreed with wholeheartedly. I'm sure she's going to get revenge somehow. Update, revenge found here, https://www.reddit.com/r/tafud/comment/underscore by /underscore treating /underscore my/underscore friend /underscore her/underscore tl, friend's flight was delayed, thought of a funny thing to do at an airport and treated my friend like luggage and her suitcase like my friend, put suitcase in front seat, went to put friend in trunk, and airport police was not amused.